Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to start the second session, so again, please, all mobile phones off. Thank you very much.
Delegates of Dáil na noÓg, it is an honour and a privilege for me to chair this closing session of what has been a remarkable and memorable day. May I welcome especially the Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, Dr. Catherine Zappone, who joins us for this closing session. Dáil na noÓg was first convened in 2001, and as Ireland's Youth Parliament, it is so gloriously fitting that in this, the 100th anniversary year of the meeting of the very first Dáil, that we take our seats right here in Leinster House. And so to this afternoon's business. I want to thank each and every one of you for shaping our conversation here today and for so passionately lending your voice to the debate. In this House of Democracy, you'll be asked to vote later on two propositions as we choose the area of climate change that young people, through our elected representatives on the Comhairle na noÓg National Executive, will focus our work on over the next 2 years. What is clear to me is that we have the energy, the enthusiasm, and most importantly, the mandate to make change happen in the area of climate change. So I, for one, am feeling uplifted and positive after today's discussions. There is very little that cannot be achieved when like-minded citizens rally together with a cause, a plan, and a deep-rooted drive to make change happen. Delegates of Dáil na noÓg 2019, you are those citizens. You are the opinion formers and framers of the present and the future. So let today be your motivation to lead change in your families, in your schools, in your comhairles, in your communities, and in your country. As delegates who have been elected to Dáil na noÓg, you are here representing the voices of your peers on a topic that they chose as being most important to young people in 2019. I now call on Luke Chambers from Comhairle na noÓg to explain how he got to this point. Luke was a member of the steering committee, responsible for putting today's events together, and he will brief you about how the topic of climate change was selected.
Good afternoon, delegates. As we gather here in Leinster House today, we are tasked with offering our voices to guide the work of the incoming Comhairle na noÓg National Executive and to shape how we, as young people, can be a proactive and positive force in the battle against climate change. We heard this morning about the achievements of the outgoing National Executive, and we look forward to witnessing what the incoming National Executive will achieve and the difference that they will bring about regarding climate action. As we celebrate 100 years of Dáil Éireann, it is so important that we consider what young people can do to ensure that we protect our planet for those who inherit it in 100 years' time. The journey to this day began back in April when Comhairle members attended regional networking events and discussed the issues of most concern to young people and suggested the topics for the National Executive to pursue in 2020. Climate change was by far the highest topic, with 52.4% of respondents selecting it. In September, we carried out a further round of networking events to delve into the topic of climate change more deeply and to identify the most important priorities for young people in relation to climate change. Comhairle members attended these events and a large number of proposals were put forward, and once again a vote was utilised to identify the top priorities. Through this process, we arrived at the three areas that form the basis of our conversations today in the workshops: transport, single-use plastic and awareness. Today has been a culmination of the long path of thought and consideration by young people across the country. In the true spirit of Comhairle na noÓg, we have brought our voices and opinions together in order to influence decision-making in our country. Everyone who has been involved through this process has shown their passion in protecting our planet. Everyone who has been involved in this process has also shown a willingness to stand up and to be counted, to be part of a change that they want to see in our country and in our world. I would appeal to all delegates here to consider the importance of climate change in our lives. While our work today is important in influencing decision makers on climate change at a national level, we should also remember that we are all decision makers in relation to this issue. So influence change wherever you can and in whatever way you can from today on. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, Luke. It was both insightful and informative and shows the depth of our processes in Dáil na nÓg. In many ways, it seems like climate action will be the cause that defines this generation of Irish young people. And while we do not have all the answers yet, we are at least willing to prepared to ask the hard questions. We organised workshops today so that the main areas of interest for future work could be debated and decisions made on which avenues to pursue. To explain all of this, I would now like to introduce Sinead Whelan from Dún Laoghaire, Rathdown, Comhairle na nÓg, who will talk to us about the 3 areas of climate change that young people want to lead change that were debated in our workshop today. Sinead was also a member of the Dáil na nÓg Steering Committee.
Today, we give to the new National Executive 3 topics for their work plan over the coming 2 years. The topics that young people all across the country have democratically chosen as the most urgent and crucial within the theme of climate change are as follows: awareness, transport, and single-use plastics. During today's workshops, you chose transport and awareness as the top 2 within these 3 topics. The vote, which will take place later on in the session, will highlight the #1 priority issue for the Executive to work on. The first topic is transport. Transport takes up 20% of emissions within this country, and it is a crucial issue for everyone throughout the country. We all had the challenge of travelling here today, and it is unlikely that many of us had the option of travelling by emission-free, environmentally friendly modes of transport. We hope that National Executive can work with public transport providers to ensure more energy-efficient vehicles are utilised. We want public transport to become the preferred option for people by exploring timetables, routes, prices, and more regular services to rural areas. At present, approximately 3/4 of all journeys in Ireland are by car. We need to change this if we can even hope to reach our carbon emissions targets. And we believe we can if we improve public transport accessibility and sustainability nationwide. The second topic chosen was awareness. Although political reform should be at the forefront of our plan to tackle climate change, it must be paired with the effort of every individual to make a difference in our everyday lives. To do this, it is imperative that we inform everyone on how to improve their lifestyle around climate change. When people know better, they do better. We would like the National Executive to develop a nationwide advertising campaign through multimedia to achieve this. We want the National Executive to work to influence the government to educate the country in relation to climate change and to ensure that Ireland comes in line with all EU regulations. When people have adequate information, they can make informed decisions to protect our planet in their everyday lives. And it is the attitude and actions of every single one individual which will seal our fate. During today's workshops, there were countless brilliant ideas of actions which can be pursued under these headings. Under the topic of transport, suggestions made include to introduce a bike-to-work school similar to the a bike-to-school scheme similar to the bike-to-work scheme, and the lack of any rural transport network in Ireland was noted. Under the topic of awareness, you said to make people aware of their own carbon footprints and the changes they can make in their own life. Comhairle na nÓg and Dáil na nÓg exist to give young people a voice in decision-making at local and the national level. It has never been so important that we use this voice to secure and protect our future, our children's future, and the future of all generations to come. May I take this opportunity to wish my fellow elected members of the incoming National Executive the very best as we begin our term. I look forward to working with you all on the topic of climate change in the coming 2 years, and to Dáil na nÓg 2021 to see what we have achieved. Thank you.
In the workshop, thank you, Sinead, for those remarks, which have helped to explain the issues of concern to our delegates and to Ireland's young people. In the workshops, both this morning and this afternoon, delegates to Dáil na nÓg voted to decide on the top 2 topics to come before this House in the session. And I am pleased to announce that Plan Nivachta Chun an Líon Uri Plástica Éanú Sóide a Lagdú, an action plan to reduce single-use plastics and réitigh impar eile le harj an aróid. More climate-conscious transport solutions have been chosen by you to go forward to the final vote to decide on our #1 priority. Having heard your proposals for action, it is now time to make a final decision on our work programme. I now put before the Dáil na noÓg 2 propositions. The 2 propositions read as follows. Plan nivachta chun an lín uri plástica in úsáide a lagdú. An action plan to reduce single-use plastics and réitigh impar eile le harj an aróid, more climate-conscious transport solutions. We will now cast our votes by processing through the division lobbies to establish our top priority for change. The following 4 voting tellers have been nominated. Jacob Kwasanski, Galway City Comhairle na noÓg. Rachel Brennan, South Dublin Comhairle na noÓg. Jang O'Neill, Cork City Comhairle na noÓg. And Dylan Gordon, Kilkenny Comhairle na noÓg. I would ask them to take their positions now. It is truly significant that as we celebrate 100 years since the first sitting of Dáil, that we cast our votes in the traditional division lobby format today. This form of voting was used in this House until 2002, and as we vote, we pay tribute to those who represented our country and contributed to our democracy over the last 100 years. Delegates should now pass through each lobby and return to their seats by the side aisles. For this voting procedure. Can I ask the tellers to approach the chair with the final results, please? Delegates have now voted, and the results are as follows. Proposition More Climate Conscious Transport Solutions got 101 votes. And the proposition An Action Plan to Reduce Single-Use Plastics got 54 votes. Therefore, the #1 priority for Comhairle na noÓg National Executive to work on over the next 2 years is more climate-conscious transport solutions. We are delighted to have had such a fulfilling set of debates and a clear process for deciding our work programme over the next 2 years. We now pass these priorities to the Comhairle na noÓg National Executive, who will come up with an action plan for climate change. It is now my very great honour to introduce to you a passionate advocate of young people and of the climate change agenda, Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, Dr. Catherine Zappone. Minister Zappone is hugely supportive of Dáil na noÓg and Comhairle na noÓg, and we are grateful to have her here with us today.
Thank you, Caoimhe. Your chairing this afternoon is absolutely brilliant, and congratulations on that. And what a momentous occasion it is to be here in the Dáil chamber, where every seat in the House is filled by a young person. I feel so proud today, and I must say to you that this perhaps is one of the most moving experiences I have had since I have begun my term as Minister for Children and Young People. Congratulations to all of you for all that you've done to get yourself to the seat that you are in this afternoon. It's a truly historic moment for Dáil na noÓg. It's the culmination of 2 years of work. And as already has been mentioned by our chair, we're celebrating Dáil na noÓg in the Oireachtas chambers as part of the Dáil 100 celebrations. The significance of Dáil na noÓg gathering in this chamber 100 years after Dáil Éireann met first cannot be underestimated. It is a testimony of this government's commitment to listen and to engage with young leaders. So thank you for traveling from all around the country to represent your local Comhairle na noÓg to discuss the issue of climate change, an issue which will define our society for the decades to come. Ireland is one of the leading countries in the world in ensuring that young people's voices are heard in government decision-making. In fact, we're the first country in the world to have a national strategy for the participation of children and young people in decision-making, and I feel very proud about that. Young people in Ireland, like yourselves, and across the world have shown your commitment to engage with decision-makers on the issue of climate change. And I am, again, very proud of how you have demonstrated your passion, your leadership, and your empowerment in amplifying the conversation on climate change on the national and the international stage. I believe that it is the courage and moral authority of you young people and your colleagues that has been the galvanizing element that encourages ordinary people around the world to pay attention to the imminent threats posed by climate change, which has ultimately led to the growing public awareness that is sweeping across our globe. I was honored to have the opportunity to hear from some of the young activists on the world stage, more recently at the Youth Summit in New York. And again, as many of you are aware, last week, the RTE Youth Assembly on Climate Change took place here in this chamber. And I'm absolutely delighted that Comhairle na noÓg has chosen climate change as the topic for Dáil na noÓg 2019. Comhairle na noÓg and Dáil na noÓg are tried and tested structures for youth, your participation It has a long and successful history of impacting lasting change, and you couldn't wish for anything more than that, to impact lasting change on issues such as mental health, equality, making your voice heard in schools, to name but a few. And I know how hard you work as members of your local Comhairle. You are the voice of young people, not only at the level of your local authority, but you've also made your voices heard on a number of very important topics in the 2 years since the previous Dáil na nÓg in 2017. This year alone, you consulted with government decision makers on the reform of the relationships and sexuality education curriculum. And I've actually just come from a gathering in deep in the heart of Wicklow, where change makers from all over the country and outside of our country are gathering on the topic now of relationship and sexuality education. It's another key issue of our time. And you've also worked on issues such as teacher supply or the new youth justice strategy. Many of you and your Comhairle colleagues attended these consultations, and I understand that your contributions were exceptional. I'm not surprised to hear that. And as always, brought new thinking to the issues. Thank goodness. Fresh, new, innovative, inspiring thinking. The outgoing Comhairle na nÓg National Executive have had an immensely successful term with not one, but two key outcomes, which you have heard in detail from Quilleen and Rise about this morning. I was delighted to launch #TeachMeAsMe, social media campaign with the National Executive members on the 8th of October in Temple Bar Gallery Studios. And on the 4th of December, I will be launching the second piece of work produced by this National Executive, an online resource called Our Schools, Our Voices for Schools, on including young people in decision-making in everyday school life. And you know, that's where I sit in the chamber. This is where the Minister for Education sits. So I'm going to let him know about that ahead of time. I know you all agree on how important it is to have your voices heard in your school on issues that matter to you. And the work achieved through the dedication and hard work of this National Executive will have an impact on many young people's lives around the country. That's a fact. And take pride in that. And let it just go down your entire body and your mind and your heart and your spirit. It's really, really significant, the work. So I want to thank members of the outgoing executive for your dedication, commitment, and hard work. Things only change if people make them change. It's wonderful to be sitting with all these young change makers. So for the new National Executive today, it's just a beginning. The discussions you had in the workshops today, which were summarized by Luke and Sinead, and the votes you've just cast in the Dáil chamber. Wasn't that cool? Yeah, I like walking up those stairs too. Have decided the focus of the program of work of the Comhairle na nÓg National Executive for the next 2 years. My department will work closely with you, making sure that your work will have a lasting impact on the implementation of the government's climate action plan. That is my promise to all of you. In Ireland, our Climate Action Plan 2019 aims to make Ireland a leader in responding to climate disruption, and I might add that we're only going to be a leader if we actually have you work with us, and at times step out and lead the way. Sometimes you might have to step back. Sometimes the adults might have some good ideas too, but we need you to at least walk with us, as well as at other times step in front of us. The strategy will focus on maximizing the engagement and contribution of citizens, especially yourselves as young people, in long-lasting climate solutions. My department will also establish a National Youth Council for Climate Action and Climate Justice, in close collaboration with the Department of Climate Action, as well as a new special fund for youth action on climate justice. This was my resolve when I came back from the UN General Assembly, where representatives of young people from all over the world gathered outside of the General Assembly to protest, and then the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, invited the young people in to engage with the member states, and we became key listeners to the young people that day. So that was my resolve, to set up these things, and that's why I am happy to announce them today. These will provide more channels for direct engagement between young people and decision makers across government and beyond, and I will personally ensure, with the help of my officials, that you as young people will be supported in a long-term engagement to continue to work closely with decision makers on climate action and climate justice. And together then I think that we can amplify the conversation on climate justice. And that is a phrase I chose particularly for this council. And it's a phrase, I think, the first person to have used it, well, certainly that I heard, but I'd like to say in the world, is our former president, Mary Robinson, and who has a foundation dedicated to that. Climate justice really outlines in a much, I think, broader way, and in a way that inspires and ethically motivates all of us to ensure that we stay on the path of the climate change that we need. Together, we can be involved in powerful, enduring dialogue with decision makers, and together you can ensure that your voices are heard and acted on. And again, in initiating the National Council on Climate Action and Youth Council on Climate Action and Climate Justice, my hope and desire is that, yes, you know, you identify what it is that you want, you exchange with us, but that you have the opportunity to do that in an ongoing way. It's not just a once-off, coming with a few recommendations and then going home. We want it to be deeper than that. I strongly believe in supporting young people, you as young people, in this endeavor by giving you the opportunity to shape and influence future policy. I hope some of you in the next few years will actually be sitting here because you've been elected by your constituency. Climate change and environmental breakdown are among the greatest challenges facing us today, and our decisions today will have lasting implications. Believe that. Children and young people will be impacted the most, and so you need to be at the forefront of all decision making on combating climate change. And I mean that. Finally, if I may, there's some very dedicated people who have enabled you to be here today, and I would like to thank them on your behalf. Comhairle and noÓg coordinators are the local champions around the country who believe that children and young people have a right to a voice and a right to participate in decisions that affect their lives. On behalf of my department, I thank them and applaud them for their work in supporting Comhairle and noÓg. I'd also like to acknowledge the support and funding for Comhairle and noÓg, which has been provided by our local authorities, many of whom give huge support to their local Comhairle and noÓg. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank all those in Froiga, Youth Work Ireland, and the Houses of the Oireachtas, all of the wonderful staff here who are here with us in the Houses of the Oireachtas, who have worked with the staff in my department to organize this event. And I want to thank all of my, and they're up over there and around there, staff from Department of Children and Youth Affairs, who this really means a lot to them. It's not just a job. It's really one of the most important and meaningful things that they're doing. And I want to finally thank you. Thank you for your enthusiasm, your energy, your commitment to climate action and climate justice. And I will continue to work with you to make sure your voices are heard loud and clear, and to ensure that you will have a lasting impact.
Thank you, Minister, for your inspiring speech. We know that you are working tirelessly on young people's issues all year round. Today has been such a special event. On behalf of all of us, I want to thank everybody who has played a part, big or small, in making this event happen. In particular, I want to thank the teams from the Houses of the Oireachtas who went above and beyond to make us feel so welcome here today. A very special thanks goes to Julie Lyons and the catering team, Colm O'Rourke and the usher teams, and Derek Dignam and the communications and Oireachtas television teams for their work and support. I thank the Comhairle for joining us this morning and for making it possible for us to host this event in Dáil. And finally, I thank the Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, Dr. Catherine Zappone, for being here for our closing session and for her ongoing support of Comhairle na noÓg and Dáil na noÓg. We look forward to working with her and her officials and also the Minister for Communications, Climate Action and the Environment and his officials to take forward the mandate that they have received today. I wish you all safe travels home, and I now officially draw Dáil na noÓg 2019 to a close. And can you please stay in your seats as we take a family photo?